Another driver who's covered by car insurance from More Than, sponsors of Fifth Gear.
In tonight's Fifth Gear, Tiff tries very hard to break a world record. Adrian grapples with a Model T Ford, and I show you the roads where spending just a little money would save a lot of lives.
Honda's Civic Type R, seriously sorted and leader of the hot hatch pack. 197 horsepower, 0 to 60 in just over 6 seconds, and a rather snazzy interior. At £16,000, it's also great value. Not to be outdone, Ford are hitting back with this, the Focus ST170. It's a successor to those Essex essentials, the XR2 and 3. One of Ford's strengths has always been knowing how to tart up a car. They are the masters of the body kit, usually. Things are a bit tame here. At the front there is a new mesh grille, some fogs with sexy xenon lamps and 17-inch alloys. And that's about it. Oh, apart from this teeny-weeny badge. Now, in case this ever comes up in a pub quiz, ST stands for Sports Technologies. Inside, they've razzed it up a bit. Metal on the pedals, silver trim on the gear knob and handbrake, and I am pleased to see on the dials a Millennium makeover. It starts at the same price as the Honda, but add in goodies like this car's metallic paint, those headlamps, Recaro seats, plus a souped-up stereo, and you'll end up paying an extra £2,000. Which makes the total bill 18 grand. Steep stuff. It had better impress them. 0 to 60 takes 7.9 seconds, though that is almost 2 seconds slower than the Civic's. Top speed is down to 134 compared to the Honda's 146. If you want more from your Ford, then there is a nutter Focus, the supersonic 220 brake horsepower RS, due later in the year. In the meantime, though, you'll have to make do with 170. And although this ST is very keen to show what it's got, it won't intimidate the Civic on a blast. But if you stop thinking about the ST170 as a who knows car, then things get better. The box standard Focus is a highly competent cornering machine. And with the ST, the boys have tweaked the chassis and stiffened the suspension to splendid effect. There's plenty of traction and grip, even with the electronic stability program switched off. So Colin McRae style jaunts into trees should be difficult to do. Unless, of course, you are Colin McRae. I do have two little criticisms though. The first is the new 6-speed gearbox, which isn't as slick as the Honda's. And the second is that chassis. It's so good that the more you drive it, the more you can hear it begging for more power. So, is this fast-ish Focus going to woo Civic Type R buyers? The ST170 is a very good car, though in a refined and understated way. It's more business suit than tracksuit. Me, well, I like my cars to be a lot more edgy, more hardcore, so I would go for the Honda Civic Type R. It not only looks special, but it makes you feel it too. Better luck next time, eh?
Hatfield. 4 dead, 34 injured. Front page news for days. And making sure such carnage never happens again will cost us not millions, but billions. If 4 railway fatalities cause such a national outrage, why, when it comes to death on our roads,
do we just shrug our shoulders? You see, every year 3,400 people die on UK roads, and that's the equivalent of 16 Hatfield rail disasters a week, every week.
When blood gets spilt on tarmac, there's no media frenzy. Our roads may be Europe's safest, and the government may be trying to reduce casualties and deaths by 40%, but this country still has far too many killer roads.
Safety experts agree that hundreds, maybe even thousands of lives could be saved by cheap and relatively simple improvements to our roads. And despite the huge tax burden placed on motorists, the money always seems to get channeled somewhere else.
The AA's John Dawson is chairman of the European Road Assessment Programme. He showed us how easy it would be to dramatically reduce the four main types of road accident.
This is national speed limit on this road, so you have a car coming down here at 60, another car coming up here at 60. That is a closing speed of 120 miles an hour.
120 mile an hour head-to-head impact, and that four-star car is no good for you. And this is quite interesting because you can see here the type of solution that we could implement, which is being trialled in Sweden. We separate the two streams of traffic by a double white line, but in Sweden that will be separated with a safety fence.
Is a safety fence like that effective and inexpensive?
Well, basically, as on a motorway or on a dual carriageway, a safety fence stops virtually all usual, normal head-to-head collisions. And we know those are cost-effective, and they might cost about 200,000 a mile to put in, which is, in the terms of road infrastructure, written off over 10, 20, 30 years, a very cheap way of stopping death and serious injury on the road.
Difficult road, this one. It's in a dip. There's a school just here, lots and lots of private access. They've done some things, but they should be doing more here, shouldn't they?
Some marks for getting, for example, like reminders on the 40 mile an hour speed limit. That's right in people's face. This is actually a major commercial route. It is a trunk road. And the question is, do we tighten this road down with very aggressive traffic calming, or do we build the 10 million bypass that this community probably needs to take the traffic right away from the school and from the people?
Okay, 10 million, that's an awful lot of money.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, it isn't. That is how much you have to spend in order to keep things in balance. We're talking about a life costing 1.4 million. So saving 5 lives over a 30-year period, let alone the serious injuries, let alone the slight injuries, let alone the stress and worry of the traffic interfering with people's lives in this community. It really is relatively small beer.
John, solid objects like this lamppost behind me claim 500 lives a year on UK roads, but it strikes me as it's a terribly simple thing to fix.
Well, it is. We wouldn't allow this on a modern road to new standards. All solid objects would have to have a safety fence in front of them. But here we have a road rated at 70 miles an hour and a whole forest of lampposts within 5-6 feet of the carriageway, actually on both sides of the carriageway. One slip and you're dead. It's as simple as that.
We've got a fairly complicated junction here. What's wrong with it?
Well, basically death built in. What you have to avoid in junction design is those brutal side impacts. The human body cannot withstand an uncushioned impact of more than 25 miles an hour. Here we have a road rated at 60 miles an hour with right-turning traffic across it. Basically, on a high-speed road, roundabouts, not traffic signals. A roundabout has a deflection built in, so people have to slow down, and the impacts are not side to side. They're travelling in the same direction if it's well designed.
So what about the cost here, though?
Probably about 400,000, 500,000 to convert this from traffic signals to a roundabout. But the key thing to remember is that this will be here for 20, 30 years, stopping death and serious injury.
It's startling stuff. And remember, we are the most heavily taxed motorists in Western Europe. In 1975, the government took £12 billion from motorists in road tax, yet spent £12 billion on roads. Quarter of a century later, they've taken £38 billion from us in road tax, yet spent only £6 billion on roads. The AA call it scandalous underinvestment. I'd call it theft.
These are the death roads where the need is greatest. Norfolk's A1065, which has too many unprotected roadside objects. The A43 between Kettering and Corby is littered with badly planned junctions. And on the same road between Corby and Stamford, in the last 36 months, there have been 15 head-on smashes.
Let me leave you with this one thought. 10% of the Treasury's entire revenue comes from us, the motorist. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that more of that money should be spent reducing Britain's killer roads. Our lives, they depend on it.
After the break, Tiff's going for the record, and a reminder of how to win our roly-poly.
There aren't many cars as significant as the Ford Model T. At one point, they made up half the cars in the world, with one rolling off the production line every 10 seconds. They used to come in any colour you liked, as long as it was black, because that was the fastest drying paint. They did 45 miles an hour, 20 miles per gallon, were simple, strong, and could even drive through trees. Overall, nearly 17 million were made.
Right, you got all that? Good. Now, if you were thinking, as I indeed was hoping, oh, come back foot, that meeting the world's biggest expert on Model Ts would involve a nice trip to Detroit, you'd be wrong. Apparently, he's around here. Somewhere.
Because here at the back of a muddy, windswept Buckinghamshire farm lies not just a muddy, windswept Buckinghamshire farmer, but Neil Tuckett, an extraordinary enthusiast. He buys, sells, restores, repairs and collects them. Nothing happens in the world of Model Ts without him knowing about it first.
Rod, can you bring me another timer?
So how do you, in the middle of England, come across all this Model T, I was going to call it junk, but spare parts?
Some of it was produced here because they had a big factory in Manchester, but the majority comes from America, and people ring me up, fax me, email me. So the stuff finds me. I don't have to go and hunt it out particularly. And I round stuff up once a year in America, go over there and fill a container up and bring it back.
If I was to buy a Model T off you, Neil, what sort of people would I be ranking myself alongside? Who's been here as well?
I've got a sheikh in Qatar who comes over regularly to buy Model Ts, and the owner of the racetrack in Malaysia, he came over and bought 2. So yeah, you never know who's going to come in.
Well, if they're good enough for Malaysian racetrack owners, they're good enough for any of us. Time to get to know the T a bit better.
You could say that the Model T was the world's first multi-purpose vehicle. The chassis stayed completely the same throughout production, but there were 17 different body styles, and you can find most of them right here in Neil's yard. Blimey, Neil, look at all these.
You could spend hours looking around Neil's stock. He's got everything from unusual Model T tractors to desirable 4-seaters, even charabancs that transported troops to the front. This wooden creation was a people carrier for the 1920s. Lose the seats and the roof, and it doubles as a flatbed pickup. This is one of the rarest, a right-hand drive town car worth £25,000. As time wore on, I felt I was becoming quite an expert and could value almost anything.
This one looks like a cheap one, Neil. Why don't you put it out of its misery? Look at it.
This is one of my favourites. The kids call this one Rusty.
Oh no, it's rusty. It's a death trap.
Yeah, no, it's not a death trap. It's MOT'd every year. I drive this 1,000 miles a year.
Have you got a bit of a thing going on with the local MOT?
No, he doesn't give me any favours.
So out of all these, this one is your favourite?
I'll jump in this one every time.
And this was how much?
I bought it in a sale, looking derelict for £2,999.
Hang on, what do you mean, looking derelict? Look, for how much?
It had £2,999. It had straw, chicken's nest, fag packets.
And you paid three grand for it?
No, £2,999.
Okay, yeah, you're a deal, I can tell. Well, how much is it worth now that you've done it up?
Well, I basically have just serviced it and put new tyres on it, and I maintain it, and I was offered £9,000 for it and turned it down.
You should have bitten the hand off.
No, I enjoy driving this car.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm glad. I'm glad to see you're into it, Neil. I really am. I'm just thinking of your car, Neil.
Having established there was a T for all tastes, it was time to actually get to grips with the thing. Although that wasn't going to be quite as straightforward as I'd imagined.
Right, Neil's given me the lowdown on how to drive this car, and we'll start with the accelerator, which is a lever up here, which is crackers. Down here, this is where it gets confusing. There's first gear down like that, and up into top. This middle one is reverse and this one is brake. And apparently, if you get into problems, you just press all three at once. I've only got 2 feet. Anyway, it can't be that confusing to start it with this button down here. Come on! Yes, a natural. Off we go. Oh, more revs. Oh,
This 1925 Tourer is worth around £9,500. It's not exactly nippy, and I'm not totally convinced the steering's up to modern standards, but it does come with the desirable factory-fitted option of a windscreen wiper.
I better slow down because I don't trust myself or the steering. I'm actually coming to quite like the charms of the T. I've got to watch out, we're picking up speed here. And there are plenty of people in the UK who are also into it. The problem is, there aren't enough youngsters getting into Model Ts in order to perpetuate the legend.
Which is where Ford's Build a Model T challenge could come in. It celebrates Ford's centenary, and Neil will sell you everything you need to build a winning car of your own. But if you're worried a normal T is a bit pedestrian, then get yourself a 90-mile-an-hour speedster version and scare yourself silly.
And now, a gentle reminder of how to win our high-rolling classic.
Now, this is the competition that I really don't want you to enter because I do seriously want to keep this car myself. It's so good. So this is the question that I don't want you to answer.
What's the name of the Rolls-Royce mascot? Is it the spirit of euphoria, the spirit of ecstasy, or the spirit of elation? Call 0901 565 5002 to enter, and we'll show that number again at the end of the programme. Lines close on the 14th of June, and you can also enter via our website, which has lots of clever stuff all about fifth gear.
A car's 0 to 60 time is the sort of currency that reputations are built on. It takes your average family saloon about 10 seconds and your average supercar about 5.
But the Guinness World Record for a production car that's legal to drive on the road is an almost inconceivable 3.07 seconds. And that was set back in 1994 by a rally-bred Ford RS200. So it's about time someone tried to beat it.
The problem is, what with? You need four-wheel drive, low weight and plenty of power. You need a £40,000 Tiger Z100.
Yet another innovative testimony to Colin Chapman's original Lotus 7. And what makes this special is that it's got one Kawasaki 1200cc engine to power the front wheels and another to power the rear.
Which results in 408 horsepower wrapped in 650 kilos and a power-to-weight ratio that dwarfs everything else on the road. So what sort of multi-million-pound operation conceived this potential record breaker? Well, meet the Dudleys.
I'm James Dudley, I'm the Managing Director of Tiger Cars.
My name's Sue, I'm Jim's wife and I do the day-to-day running of the business. I'm Jo, I'm Jim's daughter and I like to put them through their paces.
Hi, I'm Laura, I'm Jim's daughter and I deal with all Tiger's money.
Hi, I'm Chris and I'm responsible for the design.
The Tiger may have twin engines, but it's half the comfort and twice the vibration.
Now, it may seem very complicated, but it's actually very simple. The gear lever is split into two, so I can either change one engine at a time, or both together. And I've got two red counters that shows me what each engine's doing. Mind you, it doesn't really matter what gear it's in, because if you floor the throttle, the performance is
And the handling experience is equally energetic.
If we're going to break any records, though, we need a few basic ingredients.
You literally need a level playing field.
Check.
Some witnesses.
Check.
Some state-of-the-art timing equipment.
Check.
And a driver who knows his clutch from his elbow.
Check.
The The fastest way to accelerate from a standstill to 60 is by swapping the spectacular for the efficient. Smoking hooliganism is not what's required. Instead, you need a delicate throttle touch and exquisite clutch control. Earlier trials had proved the car was capable of a fast time, but to even stand a chance of sneaking under that record of 3.07 seconds, absolutely everything needs to be perfect. For starters, you need the right weather. A wet track would make it impossible. And you need just enough fuel to keep the weight to a minimum. But eventually it's left to man and machine. I just kept the throttle planted. Now it was the agonising wait to see if we'd beaten that magic time of 3.07 seconds. It took just a second to get to 20 miles an hour and under 2 to get to 40, so things were looking promising. 2.35 to 50 and...
2.97.
Oh! We'd beaten it by 1/10 of a second.
Out of the way. I'm getting the knack of this. One record broken, I'll go set another one.
Well, I would have if I hadn't broken one of the engines first. A rod had gone through the side and that was that. But it doesn't stop us believing that this little car is capable of even more in the future.
Next week, the Pagani Zonda. Is it the most supercar ever? And a BMW 3 Series that's really rather cheap.
If you're about to change your car and want to know how to get the best deal, call us on 0901 565 5004 for our free car buyer's guide in association with DC Cook Direct. Calls cost 60 pence a minute and should last no longer than 3 minutes. Fifth Gear returns next Monday at 8 and next Tuesday at 7, and next tonight, our main news.